What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Shot 3 from the Tee. The worst 4 words you can see together on your shot tracker. When we have shot tracker, that is, during the Asian swing, we don't have it. But anyways, the worst 4 words that you could possibly see. Shot 3 from the Tee if it's one of your golfers that are sweating. This podcast is going to recoup, if this is your first time listening, the opening tee podcast that I did last night. I'm going to go over the salaries. I'm going to actually go into the field. I gave you the field qualifications last night. I'm going to go into the field here, let you know about some of the players you probably don't know about. Then I'm going to go into a little opening odds and salary discussion. And then we're going to turn it over to Matt Jones at Matt Jones TFR on Twitter. We've got some great statistical talk tonight. I actually recorded that first just due to timing constraints. So I can tell you it was probably our best 13 minutes so far. So definitely stay tuned for that. And of course, you're going to get me quickly here. So not too much time. So let's jump right into the salaries last night. If you weren't able to catch the opening tee pod, I'll give you a quick review. I had Rory at 11.9, and then I had either Xander or Hideki at 11.3 and 10.9, with Rose 10.6, Fleetwood 10.4, and Paul Casey 10.2 for 6 above. Well, I got all 6 guys right, but I did not get their position right nor their salary correct on any of them, sadly. And I got the position, I guess you could say, 4 for 6 maybe. The top 4 were all correct if you give me the Xander and Hideki. So Rory came in 11.7, $200 off from my guess. Hideki at 11.1, again $200 off my guess. Xander 10.8, Rose 10.5, and then Paul Casey at 10K. So they did put Casey above Fleetwood there, and Fleetwood at 9.9. So, not bad. Got the top 6 correct. They did not go with Tony Finau, as I suggested they might. So, not bad. I'll give myself, it's probably another B. I didn't really get any of the salary rights. Maybe even a C this week, even though I did get all 6 guys correct. Pretty easy, I guess, for that. I guess all 6 guys is like a 78. Maybe a C plus if you really want to grade it. All right, so now we'll go into the field. Last night, I went over the field. What it took to get here. A lot of weird qualifications. That's why you see Kevin Kisner here winning the match play last year, so on and so forth. So field for the current year, the first category we're going to go over is the European Tour Order of Merit. You have to rank inside the top 30 prior to last week's Portuguese Masters and not already be qualified. It actually ended up really screwing Audrey Ornu, who had just passed Richard Sterney after the Portuguese Masters, but sadly, it counted before it, so he ended up being the first alternate with Richard Sterney getting in. So from top to bottom, Robert McIntyre, 22-year-old from Scotland, really popular if you've played Euro Tour DFS. Eric Van Rooyen, we've seen a couple of times over here. Christian Benzenhuten had a really good year from South Africa. Kurt Kitayama, we've seen recently on the PGA Tour and had a good little spurt here. Jorge Campillo, the Spaniard. Benjamin Hebert from France. Justin Harding, the putting whiz from South Africa. Victor Perez. Romain Langasque, both Frenchmen there. Haotong Li from China. Paul Waring, who we've seen a couple of times. If you've played the Euro Tour, he won the Alfred Dunhill Links, I believe. Andrea Pavan, Joost Luiten, Mike Lorenzo Vera, and as I mentioned before, Richard Sterney. So certainly some playable guys in this one. The birdie or better percentage. Robert McIntyre, Eric Van Rooyen right off the top. Certainly some guys to look into. Justin Harding is a fantastic putter, so also something to take a look at there. Next qualification is the current year Asian Tour Order of Merit. Looks like just the top 4 get in. Jazz Janawattanand, gonna play his 3rd straight week here on the PGA Tour Asian Swing. Scott Henn, a 46-year-old, ranked 249th in the world. I'll relate him kind of Sean Norris. He kind of plays on all the tours. Last made cut he had, Henn, was a T36 at the Porsche Open. Speaking of the year, I did not count his Japanese tour start recently. Jeb Kruger, a 33-year-old from South Africa. He won 6 weeks ago at the Shinhan Donghae Open. So that probably is one of the big reasons why he's here. And then surprised that this guy wasn't in the field during the Zozo, maybe because he actually only plays primarily on the European Tour. And that's Masahiro Kawamura, a 26-year-old. He just had a top 10 at the Spanish Open not too long ago, and also sandwiched in there top 25s in the most Asian and Japan Tour events. I played him in a big event this year earlier on, the same one, I believe it was Trophy de Hassan. When the PGA Tour had a break or the Zurich Classic was going on, they put out big prize pools. And I played him a little bit then, and he played very, very well. So Masahiro Kawamura in play a little bit this week. The next qualification is the current year Japanese Golf Tour Order of Merit, Roy Ishikawa and Chan Kim. We saw both of them last week, and actually both played pretty good before Sunday when Ishikawa totally blew up. So interesting there. Another interesting name from the Australian Tour Order of Merit, Jake McLeod. Jake McLeod, statistically, it kind of like sets up like Corey Connors, I guess. Just looks good, tee to green. Certainly not nearly as good as Corey Connors, but I guess when you're evaluating the European Tour stats to what we have to look at, Jake McLeod kind of fits those guys that really struggles with the putter, but came in 8th place last week, now up to top 10 on the European Tour, where he has status now this year. So Jake McLeod, maybe going to find a couple of lineups for me this week. And then another guy from that Australia-Asia Tour is Matthew Millar, a 43-year-old, ranked 469th in the world. Wow. Getting into this week's field. Xander Lombard is the next one getting a qualification from the prior year Sunshine Tour Order of Merit. That's the South African Tour. Here's Xander Lombard, 24-year-old. He's playing on the European Tour. He came in the top 10 just 3 weeks ago, but did miss the cut at the African Tour 2 weeks ago. So certainly up and down for Xander Lombard. Bryce Easton is the second guy from the Sunshine Tour getting in. He's been playing on the Challenge Tour. He came in the top 25 last week at the Foshan Open. He's 32 years old. Probably not going to make many lineups for me this week. Okay, that's the Sunshine Tour Order of Merit. Next, we're going to go to the 6 selected Chinese golfers. Xing Junjiang, we know about him. He's on the PGA Tour this year. Ashan Wu is a pretty solid player from the European Tour. Yichen Yuan, or Carl Yuan, I believe he's going by on DraftKings. 22-year-old from China. He's ranked 464th in the world. He was on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. Played one third place in Panama. And also joining him is countrymate Zicheng Do, who I believe was one of the last guys out. Won one of the first tournaments of the year and then just was really not seen too much after that and did not end up getting in the top 25. He was knocked out. So had a pretty good year though, and he'll go back to the Korn Ferry Tour again. Next guy, I couldn't really find much information about. Zhang Kai Bei. It looks like maybe he just turned pro. Like I said, this one I really struggled with. And then the last one is Wen Chong Liang, a 41-year-old who's ranked 743 in the world. He's playing his golf on the Japanese Tour. He must know the tournament director or something, because 743rd in the world, that's crazy. But he's in the field. Last, it was they called it a fill the field. I think it's more or less sponsors exemptions, but because it's a WGC, they don't have those. So the guys that filled in the field this week, filling out the field of 78, Mikumu Horikawa, he came in 72nd last week. Neil Scheidercat, playing on the African Tour, he's ranked 370th in the world, so a little bit better than some of the other guys we've been seeing. Taha Lee, 76th last week. Daniel Nispet is world number 604, playing on the Australian Asian Tour. Finally, we got 3 good guys, so I know it may be a little snooze fest to get to these 3, but we got Matthias Schwab, who's skyrocketed to 126th in the world. He's playing his golf on the European Tour. He's had 2 recent top 5s at the Italian Open, 4th and 2nd place at the Porsche Open. So Matthias Schwab certainly in good form and maybe a little lesser known. Cameron Smith and JT Poston are the next 2. Finished off with Yosuke Azaji, who came in 63rd after shooting 5 over on Sunday last week. So So that probably covers most of the golfers that you did not know coming into this. So that should give you a pretty good indication of who you can just totally throw out and who you might want to keep in the player pool that you might not have known before. So before we bring Matt in, let's see how good we're doing. We're at about 10 minutes. Matt's about 13 minutes. So about 23, perfect amount of time to give my 3 picks for the opening odds and salary discussion. Last week, it was pretty much a miss. Xander Schauffele did top 10, which would give us, I believe it was a 2.5 or 3-1. Not bad. Basically pays for the other bets, more or less, which was Ryan Moore, who was garbage, and Adam Long, who was okay. He wasn't terrible, but no top 20 bet paid off from Adam Long, who ended up coming in 51st after shooting 4 over on Sunday, so a little spark of energy there. Okay, this week we're going to go right back to Xander at 17-1. He's the defending champion. He was actually at 60-1, the defending champion, so getting him a lot less, obviously, this week. But I saw what I needed to last week, and with the course fit and course history looking pretty good, I'm going to go him over Rory, plus you're getting double and a half what you're getting on Rory at 7-1. I'll take Xander at 17-1. Francesco Molinari was one of the ones that really stuck out to me as, I understand he's playing bad, but 51-1 in a tournament like this seems a little long for Francesco. But nevertheless, 51-1 I think is a good little bout, at least for a top 20 and a top 10 bets as well. And the last one is a guy that I mentioned above from that Australia-Asia tour. He's coming off a top 10 at the Portuguese Masters. And that's Jake McLeod. He's 600-1 to win. Obviously, that's not the bet I'm looking at. I'm more looking at a top 20. See if he can continue that strong tee to green game and make a couple of putts and get inside that top 20. Would still be a pretty good payoff. I think it's looking like 20 or 30-1 right now, so still pretty good there. Well, that will do it for the first segment here of the Shot 3 from the Tee podcast. I'm going to send us off as Matt Jones will be joining us here for the second half of the show. So again, if you're not already an Awesemo.com Plus member, premium member, it's a great time to do it because these fields, you may not know everybody, especially the 2 weeks coming up after this week where we'll be back to our fall swing season in the United States. It's actually in Mexico, so we'll be heading to Mexico for the Mayakoba Classic. So great time to join. Use promo code, of course, Roslyn to get 50% off of your first package. And I know we just came out with a bunch of new packages, so check those out if you're not already a member. Got a bunch of stuff coming, and of course, golf will restart on January 1st. But between now and then, we do have plenty of tournaments. I counted the other day about 7 tournaments between the European Tour and the PGA Tour. So until next time, everybody, and until the segment, thank you for joining for Shot 3 from the Tee podcast, part of the Awesemo Golf podcast series. Thanks, everybody, and good luck this week at the WGC HSBC Champions. Signing off. Cheers, everyone. All right, everybody, welcome back to the second segment here of the Shot 3 from the Tee podcast. I'm joined by Matt Jones at Matt Jones TFR on Twitter. We've been running good enough, Matt, to keep having you come back, to have me keep coming back for all that matters. And our analysis last week did lead me to a couple of guys in my winning lineup on FanDuel, so we must be doing something right.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we did mention El Tigre, so that was good, right?
Yeah, mentioned El Tigre. We mentioned Corey Connors, so a couple of guys there in the top 5. And the thing about proximity, the way it works, obviously on the PGA Tour, it's the closest that it gets to the hole. That's what they're measuring, obviously, proximity to the hole. But sometimes those guys can miss the green when they're going for it and could end up being closer than some of the guys that are on the green. And so that's where scrambling comes in and stroke can around the green can come in. But anyways, I like it. I've always used proximity in my analysis. Not everybody does. It's to each his own, but that's what I love about golf. So let's start off with that. And instead of picking a specific yardage this week, we're going to go off of what you have put out on Twitter, Matt. And why don't you just give a quick little rundown in case somebody didn't have it from last week?
Yeah, so, we don't have the shot tracker because, God forbid the PGA send all the equipment overseas.
Oh, yeah, jeez.
So, yeah, I mean, it's almost 2020, but we can't quite figure that one out yet. But, so it ended up, I came up with a simulator that basically predicts what each golfer and the field in general will face proximity wise. So if you saw the tweet earlier, it definitely a huge spike around 200, which is obvious since there's a couple of par threes around there, and then 150 to 175. Those two seem like the biggest the biggest points of emphasis, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can go onto his Twitter, and he puts out where he expects each golfer to be hitting from. And what did you find from that analysis? Why don't you give us a few players that kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, so as one of the longer hitters, I mean, it's not a mystery that Rory McIlroy would be pretty good at a lot of things that we're looking at, but I have him projected for 3 or 4 attempts per round at 125 to 150, and he's first in that. And I actually built out a simulator for the whole tournament as well, and he won about 13%. So if you're a betting person, that would be like plus 650-ish, somewhere in there. So very high likelihood of doing pretty well this week.
Yeah, absolutely. As probably it is with every week. Now, interestingly enough, and this is where the proximity numbers get a little jumbled, I guess I'll say, but inside of 125, Rory was actually not really good on the whole last year. Why do you think that is? And do you think it's really just the sand wedge that he struggles with, but the pitching wedge, which he hits from 125 to 150, he's better? Why do you think there's that much discrepancy between the two stats?
Yeah, that is interesting. I hadn't noticed that, but I guess it also is a matter of sample size too, I would imagine. I wonder how much, how many opportunities he has at those ranges. I would imagine that the shorter attempts are probably where he's not necessarily playing to a club, where he's just trying to get close. And then a little bit further out, he's probably playing to a number that he's comfortable with. I don't know. That's just sort of my initial back of the napkin analysis.
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting because the further up you go in proximity, as far as the approach shot, distance-wise, he gets better. He starts at the 158 mark, like I said, for the wedges, and under 125. Then it's 10th, 4th, 2nd, and 25th, all the way up to 200 yards and over. So, obviously, Rory, at a course that he's going to get, plenty of opportunities with those clubs, he's going to obviously excel. One of the guys that I found, wanted to see if you did before you give me your second, obviously Justin Rose, he's one of the highest priced guys in the field, so that's no surprise, but I have him being very good under 125, and you've got him projected for 3 shots there, and also very good from that 175 to 200, and you've got him projected for possibly 4 shots from there. So did he ring a bell for you? Again, he's one of the best players in the world, so I'm sure he did, but those numbers kind of stick out to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's definitely another guy who I think you could probably make a case for most weeks, but there's definitely a fit here for sure.
No doubt about it. Okay, why don't you give me a 1 or 2 more from your graph here?
Yeah, so it looks like Shane Lowry's at 8,800. It looks like maybe he's done with his open hangover and he's ready to play some golf again. I think he's top 15 in 3 of his last 4 starts, and I'm looking at the predictions here, and it looks like he's going to be seeing about 8 attempts over 150 yards per round, and that's over the past 24 rounds. He's in the top 20 in each of the categories that covers those distances. So he's a guy that I'm somewhat interested in at a pretty reasonable price in a field like this.
Yeah, absolutely, and I like that you bring up Shane Lowry. He's also going to be in our next segment. He's one that you'd have to dig on for the proximity numbers because he didn't put on enough PGA Tour rounds to actually generate the approach numbers from last year. That's where you got to dig, in the screener that Matt has. That's a really good one. So Shane Lowry, I like that one a lot. All right, the second stat that I had brought up last night, or I should say first stat, was strokes gained at par 72, under 7,300 yards. Anybody interesting stick out to you?
Yeah, up towards the top of the range, Tony Finau at 9,700. Since the start of last year, he gains twice as many strokes tee to green on courses like this.
It's crazy.
And he hits about 0.6 more greens per round. So a few extra birdie opportunities on courses like this. So he's definitely a guy that's piqued my interest. A little bit cheaper, Adam Hadwin, who he played pretty well, I would say, last week.
Yeah, not bad.
He's the same deal, twice as many strokes tee to green on courses like this, and this is all since the start of last season. And he's actually averaging over 70% of greens in regulation on courses like this, compared to 59% on all other courses. So that's one of the biggest discrepancies that I think I've ever seen on greens in regulation with like any sort of a sample size.
Yeah, that's pretty insane from both Hadwin and Finau. Probably a little bit more on Hadwin. That there's just such discrepancy between it. So that's a pretty good cheap one. Hadwin's relatively cheap this week, so I like that. Let's just jump back to proximities for a second. Did you find anybody cheap in there that could be a fit? I don't know if we mentioned anybody cheap. I don't think we did.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hasn't been playing great from a form perspective, but Kokrak, as far as a fit goes, seems to make a little bit of sense. He's in a similar bucket with Shane Lowry. It looks like he'll have about 7 attempts from greater than 150 yards.
Okay.
And he's top 5 in all 3 of those categories over the last 100 rounds. So long term, it seems like there's something there for him. And obviously, he can string some birdies together. So not a cash play by any means, but maybe a flyer here or there in a GPP would make some sense.
Yeah, I like that call. Absolutely. Okay, Finau, Hadwin on the par 72. Anybody else stick out, or were those two guys really the main focal points?
Actually, just super cheap. The postman, JT Boston at 6,700. On courses like this, he gains over 1.5 strokes tee to green, and on other courses, he actually loses 0.7 strokes since the start of last year. So
what? It's insane.
Yeah, so this is definitely the kind of setup that he prefers. And he averages an extra green and regulation hit per round on courses like this. So big splits there.
Very interesting. These are stats that are great. I love listening to and love applying. So it's no secret if you've been following me for a little while, I'm a big fan of Jordan Spieth, and I just like, one of the things I love about him, obviously, and one of the things I love about Tiger Woods is their ability to make putts when they shouldn't be making them. And it's really fascinating to watch. So what I did was I went back and I went into strokes gained putting, and I wanted to find guys that gained more than 2 strokes for the entire season. Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't go back to the entire season. I went back to the waste management. And I want to find guys that gain 2 or more strokes in 50% or more of their starts. All right, I'm going to give you 2 guesses without Jordan Spieth. Can you tell me at least one of the other guys of the, let's see, there's 5 of them that have accomplished this feat?
All right, I'll go. Well, we know we can cross off Hideki. I'm just scrolling through the salaries. We can definitely cross Hideki off.
Yeah, 13% for Hideki. Yikes.
Actually, what I'm looking at, Rory is actually a little bit higher than I thought as far as percentage of strokes gained, positive. But I don't know if he would hit that mark.
Yeah, he's close. He was 45%. He's on my honorable mentions. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Adam Scott had a pretty good putting year. How about Scott?
He did. He was close, but no cigar. Let's Let me give you the exact ones. He gained 4 times in 11 starts.
Oh, okay. So not as good as I thought.
Nope.
Those good performances stick in your head a little bit better than the mediocre performances, I guess.
They do. All right, I'll give you the top one. Justin Rose was 7 of 10 last year in measured starts. Pretty incredible. I know he putted well. I didn't know he putted that well. No surprise to see Matt Wallace 5 for 8. So maybe small sample size there a little bit, but still really good putter from the Euro Tour. Kevin Kisner was 7 of 13. No surprise there. Jordan Spieth was 11 of 15. That's disgusting. It's too bad he is just terrible everywhere else.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions, 45% for all these guys. Poston, Putnam, and Im. Im was like 10 of 22. Insane. So many starts since the Waste Management. And then,
no, that guy's got to be exhausted.
Yeah, right. And then the one that I wanted to throw in, and I let kind of left to be last here for a reason because we've talked about him already. And he was a great play last week, and I'm kind of feeling it again this week because it wasn't that good. It was a 13th, and it's Shane Lowry. He's 4 for 8, so 50% of his starts, and looks like he's only lost 2 times, and it was way back at the Players and API. So really good putter, and maybe proximity-wise it's setting up for him as well. So, yeah, any thoughts on that? Were those kind of the guys you thought you hear, or some surprises?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I think I may have just completely scrolled over the fact that Kisner's even in this field. I'm very interested in Kisner. But yeah, no, I think Lowry is like almost a no-brainer at 8,800, honestly. I think he could be like up around like the Eam Spieth range and you wouldn't really bat an eye. So yeah, I like Lowry quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And last week I think we got like 6% ownership. I can't imagine with a 13th place that they're going to pile back in, especially with, it looks like he's getting $1,000 price bump. So,
yeah.
Well, great stuff. This was been really good. Got some great names out there. Certainly enough names to fill out a team if you'd really like to. More than likely, but still plenty of names to work off of. So, Matt, really enjoyed it tonight. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.